I know a few weeks ago when this pandemic started, I actually preached a message out of Psalms 91. I don't know if you've seen it, but I drive around a lot during the day, place to place, city to city, and I'm seeing in a lot of yards, little yard signs that says Psalm 91. And I've seen probably about 8 or 10 of them. And like I said, when the pandemic first started, I think Eddie, we heard a message by somebody or something. Joseph Prince, we heard a message by him and about Psalms 91, and it kind of jogged my mind. Then I thought about my best friend. One of my best friends, Brother Johnny McDowell, in Warner Robins, Georgia. He loves Psalms 91. He's like, whenever I'm going through something or he's going through something, he's always talking about Psalms 91. I want to say Happy Mother's Day to the few of you that are here. I wish my mother was here. How many of y'all wish your mother was here? Raise your hand. If your mother's alive today, you ought to make sure to see them, recognize them, and spend time with them. Brother Tony was talking about he was going to go see his mother and grandmother this afternoon. And I said, I think I'd drive to Miami, Florida right now to see my mama and my grandma. I know I would. And but we can't, so enjoy them while you have them. They're precious, they're special. And Rachel's fixing to have Kaylee pretty soon. And that'll be another little girl running around, finally. Eddie knew what it's like to have a granddaughter. I know you grandsons don't believe me. And I'm not going to argue with Grandma or nobody else. Just watch. Just watch when that granddaughter comes around. And just, Brother Todd, can I get a witness? Yeah. It's different. Brother Keith, can I get a witness? It's different. Oh, yeah. Psalm 91. Psalm 91. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God. In Him will I trust. Surely He shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler, and watch this next phrase, and from the noisome pestilence. Pestilence is talking about a plague or something that plagues human beings. He shall cover thee with his feathers, and under his wings shalt thou trust. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler. Now, if you don't know what a buckler is, in Bible days, as they went to battle, they had different things the soldiers and warriors wore. A buckler was a protector. It was a shield-like thing that protected them from arrows and other things. Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day, nor for the pestilence, there's that word again, nor for the pestilence that walketh in darkness, nor the destruction that wasteth at noonday. 1,000 shall fall at thy side, and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee. Did you hear that last phrase? Let's read that last phrase again. Let's read that last verse again. 1,000 shall fall at thy side, and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee. Only with thine eyes shalt thou behold, and see the reward of the wicked, because thou hast made the Lord, which is my refuge, even the Most High, thy habitation. There shall no evil befall thee. Now watch the next sentence. Neither shall any plague By the way, that's what President Trump has called this pandemic multiple times, plague, because that's what it is. He's right. Neither shall any plague come nigh thy dwelling. For he shall give his angels charge over thee to keep thee in all thy ways. They shall bear thee up in their hands, lest thou dash thy foot against a stone. Thou shalt tread upon the lion and adder, the young lion and the dragon shalt thou trample under feet. Because he hath set his love upon me, therefore will I deliver him. I will set him on high, because he hath known my name. He shall call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will deliver him and honor him. With long life will I satisfy him and show him my salvation. Now, I don't normally read that much scripture. I normally read a verse or two and preach on that verse or two, or maybe go through a passage. But like I said, Psalms 91 has been on my heart since the pandemic started. And I think in one day this week, I saw 3 different yard signs setting out by the road in private yards that said Psalm 91. If you looked and just paid attention, you see why it's such a rich chapter. There's so much stuff in it, you could preach on many, many, many different wonderful subjects. And I have preached on it myself multiple times. I have preached on it verse by verse. I have preached on it different subjects. Like in verse 1, he talks about being under the shadow of the Almighty. That is, under the protection of God. I was listening to a sermon the other day. I can't remember who it was, but they said, no matter how low you get, the Bible makes it clear God is under you. God is protecting you. You will never get too low that God's protection can't be under you. But I'm not preaching on that this morning. Then in verse 2 he said, I'll say of the Lord, he is my refuge and my fortress. In Bible days, matter of fact, back in history, where we got our idea for forts from was ancient cities. And what they would do in ancient cities, here's the city, they would surround it with walls, and they would normally have multiple gates, at least 2 gates, one to enter, one to exit, and to give them 2 sides of the city and direction. Now, some cities would have multiple gates. The Bible talked in the Old Testament, I ain't going to get into it, about the 12 different gates that were there in the nation of Israel and Jerusalem. But a refuge and a fortress was to protect you against attackers. Like when I think of the Alamo in Texas, there was 186 Americans inside of a fort. And a pretty old crude fort too. It wasn't nothing with machine guns and this or that or whatever. And there were 14,000 Mexicans sitting outside the fort of San Anas. And it took them, I forgot how many days it took them. I can't remember the exact number of days right now. But it took them a long time. And they estimated that when the 186 Americans died, that over 2,000 Mexicans died. Now that's because they're better fighters? Yes. But that's because they were protected. They were in a fort situation. What Robert E. Lee did in the Civil War early on was he would get a high ground in a battle, and he would make like entrenchments, and the rebels would be shooting basically down into open areas, and that's why they killed so many more. History books tell it a little bit, they don't tell the whole truth. They killed a lot more than the history books tell they did. but they would kill more because they were the ones protected and they were the ones fortified. So, like when America charged Normandy and the Germans had the bunkers with the machine guns and all that stuff in it, we lost thousands of men, not because they were better fighters, but they were fortified. So when God says He's our refuge and our fortress, that means we're at an advantage on our enemy. Are you paying attention to me? That's what it means. It means when our enemy attacks us, he gives us an advantage. And because he is the advantage. And he's our refuge. What is a refuge? A refuge is somewhere you go in a storm. That's why you hear of refuge shelters, refuge places. Because a refuge protects you from the storm is what it does. So God says here in verse number 2, He said, the psalmist said in verse number 2, he said, He's my refuge. Let me read it here, verse 2. He's my refuge and my fortress, my God, in Him will I trust. Church, listen to me. Life comes down, and me and my brother talk about this all the time, and he says it more than me, but he's right. Life is about, do you realize the battle, everything is between God and the devil? Do you realize that? Are you paying attention? God and the devil is the battle. Okay? Now, we're either going to trust God or we're going to trust our flesh and the devil. Now, I'm not, again, I promise you, don't nobody take this wrong. But church, we can't live in fear anymore. I'm just telling you we can't. I mean, we're going to lose everything we have. And we have to believe that God is going to help us and protect us. He gave us too many illustrations in the Bible where He did that. And I just hope our country and our leadership and all, thank God, I'll tell you one thing, it's political stuff, but I'm glad we're in Georgia, not Michigan or Maine right now. I read yesterday the Illinois governor says he's thinking about not letting the churches go back for a year. But number one, by the way, he doesn't have that constitutional right, whether you know it or not. And that's not just my opinion, that's in the Constitution. But it's getting really, really bad, and we just have to trust God here. We need to take precautions. We need to be safe. We need to make decisions that are right for us. I understand all of that, but I've got to trust God. I mean, somewhere I have to just say, Lord, you got to take care of us. And I believe God is going to take care of America if you'll trust in Him. He said in verse 3, surely He shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler. A snare is the word for a trap. And, I was raised in South Georgia for years in Jacksonville, and you set animal traps for animals. Or to say a funny one last night, I'm on the phone with Eddie, and we have a possum that's about that big. And we have dog food on the back porch that we put in a container and put a lid over it, and Brenda and me feed our dog out of it. Well, we left the lid off about 6 months ago. I left the lid off about 6 months ago. And one night my dog went crazy. Tipper was like going nuts. And I knew it wasn't a human being. They'd done be come in and kill me or whatever. Because I laid there 5 minutes before I did anything. I finally walked on the back porch, Brother Lee, and that possum had crawled in that container of food, dog food. And he was in the container eating the dog food. So, I went to go get a gun to shoot him. Brenda said, no, it'll make a bloody mess. Don't shoot him. Just get him out of there. And so I just played around with the thing, and he finally got out, and him and the dog sparred a little bit. And then, Tipper acts real brave, by the way, last night. He was real brave while that possum was in that container. When I got him out of that container, Tipper backed up some. I think he was a little bit worried about that possum. But I remember last night was funny because, I beat him with a broom. I pushed him. I put the broom in his mouth. I tried everything to get rid of him. And finally, I got him out of there. And I don't know where he is now. But when Coon Dog stayed with me, I brought that up because of this. Now y'all, I better not tell that. I might get in trouble. Okay, next subject. Huh? Do what now? What did you say? Did you hear what she said? I had a Biden moment. You might as well slap me and say that. No, I know where I'm at. I know I'm in Georgia, and I know I'm at Grace Baptist. He don't even know what state he's in most of the time. Anyway, forget that illustration. But you do set traps, and that's what a snare is. A fowler, the verse talks about here, is a person that traps with the person that traps with the trap. Okay? Or we would call him a trapper in our days, okay? So he says here in this verse, he said, wait a minute, I'm on verse 2 here, verse 3. Give me verse 3, if you will. Verse 3, there you go. Surely he shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler and from the noisome pestilence. Pestilence. That word is used multiple times in the Bible. That's what we're going through here. It's a pandemic. It's a plague. It's a pestilence. It is killing people. It is making people sick. And don't take me wrong, I am not belittling any of that. I mean, 2 of my personal friends had it. One of them came within 1/8 of an inch of dying. I mean, the family was told on a Friday morning that they were in the miracle stage for Terrell Hopkins. He was gone for the count, basically. That's what Preacher Moore told me. So I'm not belittling none of that, but God can take care of a pestilence. I mean, think back to Egypt again and Israel. And I don't think you paid attention to that until you really pay attention at it. Because here's how it was. Here was Israel, and here was Goshen, and here was Egypt. Egypt had darkness. Goshen had no darkness. Egypt had plagues. Goshen had no plagues. Egypt's firstborn child died. None in Goshen died. Egypt's rivers turned to blood. The rivers in Goshen stayed clear. And I can go lice and rain and hail and fire and nothing. Darkness and no darkness here. Now listen to me, folks. I'm not talking about Georgia and Florida. I'm talking about Goshen and Egypt. Goshen was part of Egypt. It was right next to them. That's what I'm trying to tell you. And God took care of them. So I believe God can take care of us. How many of y'all believe that? Say amen. I want to get down to a verse here in a minute. He shall cover thee with his feathers, under his wings shalt thou trust. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler. Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow. They used to fire arrows with flame and fire on them. That's how they would kill you. Nor for the pestilence that walketh in darkness, nor for the destruction that wasteth. And now keep in mind, now verse 6 and 7 go together. So let's read verse 6 now. Nor for the pestilence that walketh in darkness, nor for the destruction that wasteth at noonday. 1,000 shall fall at thy side, and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh to thee. What promise has God given here, Brother John? Divine protection. They ain't got to worry about it. He says basically, the pestilence is going to be right there. And thousands, even tens of thousands, you'll watch die, but you'll live. Do you remember back in the Old Testament when they got bit by the serpents and they were dying of the plague, and he was killing hundreds and thousands, and God said, just take a pole and put a brazen serpent on it and hold the pole up. And here's what the Bible said, Brother Lee, if you look at that brazen serpent, you will live. If you don't look at it, you will die. So here I am in the middle of a group of people, and I'm looking at that brazen serpent with all my heart and with all my mind, and I'm living. And watch now, right next to me, right under me, right around me, people are dying. People are crying. People are shrieking. People are yelling as they die. But all I've got to do is just look at that brazen serpent and I'll be fine. That is another picture of God's protection of His children. And I'm claiming it. I'm just claiming it. I've just got to believe that. I mean, I thought about yesterday was a wonderful day, church. A lot of the church ain't here. A lot of people, I mean, some folks still feel like they don't need to come, and that's fine. I'm not criticizing them or throwing stones at them. You do what God's telling you to do. That's between you and the Lord. That's fine. But yesterday we went out on the bus route because last Sunday morning I walked in here and I said, we want to do a bus children's project and do something to show them we love them and we care about them and their families. And we had less people than this last Sunday. And I'll be honest with you, I mean, I'm a pastor. And I looked down here and saw who was here and I went, we're not going to take up much money today. And I said, we're going to probably have to do this 2 or 3 weeks. We took up last Sunday morning, $1,430. And Bobby, our goal was $1,500. We took up 1,430, and more has came in since then. And Brother Keith, did you tell me that we're pushing probably when everybody gets theirs in? Miss Cindy, the 2,000 mark probably? What? Hold them fingers up again? I think I'll preach a little for longer. We've taken up $3,000. $3,000. I didn't know that. Oh boy! I put in the text the other day, and I never, if I did seem to that, I promise you, I'm not belittling any other church at all right now. But one of the best things that ever happened to me was in 1974 when Bob Gray walked up to the pulpit and said, how many of y'all are preacher boys? And 42 of us raised our hands. And he said, that's 42 bus captains. And I kind of went, we sat there, and I was sitting next to Mark Cooley, who Mark pastors down in Pensacola, Florida, now at Burgess Road Baptist Church. He looked at me and said, what'd he just say? And so I reckon he knew what we were thinking. He said, and by the way, you don't pray about it? It is the will of God. And by the way, you don't wait a month? He turned to Brother Clint Andrews said, Brother Clint, when's the bus meeting next Saturday? He said, 9 o'clock, preacher. He said, all 42 of you preacher boys will be there at 9 o'clock next Saturday. And you're good. And this is what they did to me now, by the way. We drew numbers out of a hat. They had 55 bus routes, okay? They ran 55 bus routes, 56 bus routes. And they put the numbers in a hat, and they said, okay, that's how we did it. Say it wasn't the will of God, it must have been. So they put numbers in a hat, and Brother Hank Andrews shook them up, and we pulled the number out. And the number you pulled out was the route you were the bus captain of. Not a worker, you became the bus captain. Right then, I had never worked the bus ministry. I had never rode a bus to church or nothing. I didn't know squat about it. I picked number 55. Now, here's the thing about 55. I picked the number, and we sat there, and everybody, the division leaders took them and pulled them apart by the numbers. The divisions were like, there's 4 divisions, there's like 14 in each, 50 in each division. And Division 4 was our division, and Division 3 was our division. And I walked over there, and Brother Hank Andrews got us all around, and there's a bunch of us over there. He said, okay, you're going on bus route number 51, and you're going on bus route number 49, you're on number 46. And he says to me, Ed, I said, yeah. I said, where's my route at? He said, we got to talk to you about that. I said, okay, talk to me. He said, we're starting a route again. He said, we used to run a route over there. I said, why did you not run a route over there anymore? He said, I couldn't get a bus captain to stay out there. It's a pretty rough area. I said, where is it at? He said, you know where the Gator Bowl is? I said, yes, sir. He said, that's where your bus route is. I said, I'm quitting. That's a rough area down there, Springfield. Long story made short. He said, I'll take you out the first 2 Saturdays, and I'll ride the bus with you, Brother Ed. I said, okay. The 4th door we knocked on was the shotgun one I've told about so many times. You heard it go click, click, click. Brother Hank steps up there on the porch. I'm done stepping back down the steps. He called the guy's name and said, James, are you drunk again? Heard somebody go, Brother Hank, is that you? He said, put that stupid gun down and get your bottom end out here and talk to me. He took the shotgun, God is my witness, son, and laid it down there by the door and walked out and started crying. I said, I'm sorry, Brother Hank, I've been drinking, and I didn't know who you were, and I was scared. I owe some people money, and Hank said, can your little girl ride the bus in the morning? He said, oh, yeah, she can. We got back in his little pickup truck, and I said, is it all like that? He said, no, that's a little bit extreme, but that's the best days of my life, Brother Keith. They were poor. They couldn't. Their parents drank and took drugs. I'd go over there on Saturdays. Eddie, please let. No, okay, go ahead. Billy Wagner. Billy Wagner. That's the name of the past. Anyway, I'd go out there on Saturdays for church, and half of them would be hungry. And Daddy and me had a deal at the time. I went to college in the mornings, and I worked with him in the afternoons, and I lived with him and Mom, and he paid my car payment for. I had a car and everything and my insurance, and didn't charge me nothing to live there because I worked for him every day. And he gave me $20 cash, Brother Keith. He gave me $20 cash. I could say that ain't much money. In 1974 it was. $20 the last year, you could do some things with it. Long story made short, church. I went to a house one day, Billy Wagner's house, his little sister, Esther. And she said to me, I was getting ready to leave. I gave him some bubble gum, and she said, Brother Ed, I'm really hungry. Now, I hadn't never been. I wasn't raised rich, but I hadn't ever been exposed to that. And she just stood there on the porch and said, I'm really hungry. And I said, Esther and Billy walked out there, and I said, Billy, when's the last time y'all ate? And he said, Mom and Daddy had been gone since yesterday morning. So we had some rice last night. Oh, yeah. I went to McDonald's and bought some hamburgers and French fries. And then all of a sudden, I found some other kids that just were poor, and Mom and Daddy's were on drugs and alcohol, and I started buying them food. And I hooked. First time I ever ate Chinese food, church. I never had ate Chinese food. I don't think I had. Little old guy had a place on Main Street on my bus right down there on 38th and Main. I went in there and said, listen, I got some bus kids. I want to buy some food for them. I ain't got but $20. He said, I tell you what, he's Chinese. I tell you what, you $15, I feed all of them. He gave me a big old box of sweet and sour chicken, a big old box of fried rice, a big old box of probably some cat or something, I don't know. I took it out, and you know what, church? I told that story because it changed my life. It did. And I was a bus captain out there for 4 years. They changed my bus routes to bus route number 53. It wasn't no better. It was off of Main Street and down there where the pawn shops and the strip clubs are. And we used to go street preaching in front of the strip club. They've run us all 3 or 4 times. Anyway, church, that might not have done nothing for you. It did for me. And this church has always responded to our bus ministry. And it don't bring money in a lot. You're right. It does and it don't. And it costs money. And it takes trouble. But you've always responded. And I mean, when our church is going through, and we've been through some dark times, and we've been through some great times, and we're in the middle of a in-between weird time right now. But yesterday when I took those food out to those bus kids, and I saw Brother Tony and Brother Keith and Brother Tony loving on them little old youngins, and them asking me, "Preacher, when can we come back? Preacher, when can we come back? Preacher, when can we come back?" And I had to tell them I don't know, but I think I know, but I ain't saying nothing right now. But thank you, church. $3,000. Wow. You always impress me. It's things like this. We won't be on the front page of the paper. We won't be the star of Facebook maybe or YouTube or whatever. But you're a star in my eyes. And in some of the little kids' eyes, you are too. I want to thank you. We got to keep it going, church. You say, what are we going to do with that money? We're going to spend it on them. We came up with an idea yesterday morning. We thought we had around $2,000 yesterday morning, so we spent. Miss Krista Tomlin, she's not here, is she, Brother Mike? Miss Krista, you don't have no idea. It was her burden, and she worked it like crazy. She went and got food. She went and did this. She went and did that. She took care of the whole. All I did was call Jimmy Camp. And if you can spend money at a good store at Strickland's, I hope you spend money there. I called Jimmy. I can't help but crying now, but that's fine. I needed this. I really did. I needed this. I called Brother Jimmy Wednesday. I said, Jimmy, we're helping our bus kids. We got 15 families we're going to give food to. I did not call him to give him a gift. I said, I want to buy 15 3-packs of ground beef, 15 3-packs of sausage, 15 3-pound bags of bacon, or whatever. And I said, just give me a discount, put it up, and I'll pick it up. He said, pick it up Friday. I said, how much is it? He said, you know how much it is? He said, it ain't nothing. He said, I watch that bus come by on Sundays and go home. I don't see that nowhere else. He said, so I'm going to help you. And he'd have gave more, trust me. I had to be careful not asking him more than I do, because if it's a good cause, he'll give it. But it was God. It was God, church. So although we're sitting here few in number today, and maybe we not doing as good as we'd like to be, but here's the thing: even if we stay few, I don't believe we're going to, but let me preach. Even if we stay few and don't get as big as we want to, we're always going to do this as long as I'm pastor. Brother Keith, yesterday, you don't know what you meant to me yesterday. I was riding around with him and Tony giving this food out, and I made a statement. I forgot what it was exactly, but I said something like, as long as I'm pastor, this is what we're going to do. And I love these bus kids. And Brother Keith spoke up and said, we know you do, preacher. Bobby, that meant something. That meant something. It really did. So, I reckon that's it. Mother's Day. You know, Miss Cindy, I'm ready. You did that. That really, I've had a weird weekend. It's really been, it's been like this. And I want to thank the Lord. I want to thank the Lord. I just want to thank the Lord for just how much y'all mean to me. I hope we mean that to you. I hope we do. God is going to take care of us. God is going to protect this country, because this country has preached the gospel for 250 years. This country has sent missionaries out for 250 years. This country was built on a Christian foundation. The liberals don't like it. They're trampling all over it now, but that's what our country was built on. Okay? That's what we were. That's what we are. And I agree with our governor. And I thank God for our governor, by the way. I thank God we don't have a nut like the Michigan people do, and the Maine people, and the Nebraska people, and the Illinois people. I thank God we got Governor Brian Kemp. I think he's doing a great job. Been criticized by everybody, even including the president when he first opened up. Of course, presidents back it up a little bit now and saying it might not have been such a bad move. I said, well, I didn't think it was in the first place. But I love you. And we'll be online tonight. And it is. You're right. You're right. Did y'all hear that? This is Tracy's first Mother's Day without Josh. And you know, some of you you don't mean it, but you know, you have to go on with your life. That's because you hadn't been there. So you hadn't been there. Eddie said something to me a bunch of times, and he's right. You can always tell, Brother Keith, who's lost a child in a tragic way. You can always tell, because they're always considerate, they're always kind, and they're always sympathetic. The ones that hadn't don't understand it. But please pray for Tracy. Pray for a lot of you. How many of y'all have lost your mothers prior to the day? Let me see your hands. Yeah, Miss Gail, you had someone pass away this morning in your family? Your sister-in-law, Charlotte Helms, passed away this morning. Okay, we'll pray for the Helms family. And we got a lot more. You know, Brother Bobby Shoemate and them, Brother Bob and Dorothy Storms. Some of our people can't. Miss Marie Watkins is having carotid artery surgery done Tuesday. That's a serious surgery. What they're doing, she tried to explain it to me, yes, they're going in and they're not putting a stent in. They're cutting some out and tying some together. And it's a pretty complicated surgery she's going through. And she's pretty nervous, her and Mother Joe. So pray for her, if you will.